After a long hiatus, we're back in the virtual Section YY studios. Took, I guess it's like 2.5 weeks. We haven't recorded. So lots happened in the time since we recorded last. I think our last episode was right after the Lady Vols softball won the SEC title a couple weeks ago in Fayetteville. So a lot's happened, not just with the softball team, not just with the baseball team, but football, basketball, the whole athletic department. So a lot to talk about on this show. So we're going to get right into it. We're not going to fiddle fart around, as my mama used to say, Harbin.
Absolutely not. We're going to get our feet wet and we're going to jump right in.
No time to waste. So as you heard, Harb is here with us tonight, and it's just me and Harb. I don't know. Lady Vols said he would be a game time decision. So he might jump in here later. I'm half expecting Big Montana to jump in here at some point, but he did say he couldn't record because he's got to work. So we'll trudge through it here. So just to get the pleasantries out of the way, how was your golf trip? Tell us about it. You went on a golf trip this past weekend.
Had a good time. Went down to Myrtle Beach, played a little bit of golf. Got down there Saturday, had a tee time for about 1 o'clock on Saturday, and that one got rained out. Unfortunately, didn't have the greatest weather this week. We decided to brave through a lingering shower, so to speak, on Sunday. Go ahead and build the character and set the tone for the week. But it cleared up on Monday, Tuesday. Monday was kind of overcast, but yesterday, Tuesday, was absolutely beautiful. I think I've now played the nicest and most challenging golf course I've ever played, and that is Grand Dunes down in Myrtle Beach. If you ever get the chance to play it, or at least go and look at it, absolutely do so. Place is incredible. Extremely tough, though. The greens were like marble counters. Can't get anything to hold, and then putting was a nightmare.
Putting's a nightmare. Putting's a nightmare anyway, but when you're putting on marble counters,
so we was talking to one guys at work there, and they shut down for 5 months last year, and they got brand new greens. And the course drained really well for as much rain as I got this weekend, but the fairways were super soft and you didn't get any roll. And then you were hitting into greens that were extremely firm and not even a wedge would hold, let alone stop. And then you had to putt, obviously. But that place was absolutely gorgeous. It was a great challenge. We also played courses like Myrtlewood, Myrtle Beach National, and Wild Wing. That is all in great shape as well. So shout out to the grounds crews and the draining systems of those courses. They held up pretty well.
Yeah, the weather wreaked havoc on sporting events in the Southeast. We went up to our farm to do some work on Saturday. When we got up there, my uncle had the TV on. He spent the night up there, and Duke and I guess it was Stanford were playing softball. And this was like 9:15 in the morning. I was like, what are they doing? Is this live? And he was like, yeah, they're trying to beat the weather. And then all that rain on off the coast that was dumping on the Southeast, it just killed the NASCAR races over in Charlotte. They had to delay the race on Saturday. They couldn't race on Sunday. They came back and tried to race Saturday morning for the Xfinity guys. Got about a quarter of it in, had to stop because of rain. Then the Cup guys started, finished it, and then they came back and finished the Xfinity race at like 12:31 in the morning. And then it just was all weekend, just all over the Southeast, wreaking havoc. Didn't really do much here. I played golf Saturday morning at beautiful Clinch View Golf and Country Club in Bean Station, in good shape, very good shape. Played with past Straw Plains Invitational Open winner Nick Bernard, his dad, and Kevin Griff. I think has Kevin won the Open? I can't remember. I think
he tied one year.
I think he tied. Him and Mark Allen tied one year.
Yeah, I believe that was the first year I went.
That was over in
That was Santee.
Santee. Beautiful Santee. Great accommodations in
Uh,
Santee.
while we're still talking about golf, you'll get a kick out of this. For the listeners that don't know me or don't know my golf game, I'd put myself in the pretty good category. I mean, I'll have shitty days like everybody else, but I'll also have a good day every once in a while. According to 18 birdies, where I keep all my golf scores, I'm about a 5 to a 5.5 handicap. Nease, yesterday morning at Myrtlewood, I shot a 76 with 36 putts.
Wow. How's that possible?
Hit 14 greens and 2-putted every single one.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I had 30. I had a couple 1-putts and a couple 3-putts, but yeah, 76 with 36 putts is, for my standards, it was an absolute ball striking clinic.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was fun. And then about an hour later, we drove to Wild Wing, and I looked like I'd never swung a golf club before, but that's golf. And next time I go out, I might play really good and I might play really bad.
That's golf for you.
That's the beauty of the game. And also, while you brought up NASCAR, for people like me that don't keep up with it, why did Chase Elliott get suspended?
So I won't spoil all this, but he may or may not be a nominee for Hater and Loser of the Week.
Whoa.
So let's postpone that.
Okay.
I haven't decided.
My
I've made internal nominations for Hater and Loser of the Week in myself. So I'm having to vote on my own nominees to then put forth a nominee for everybody else to vote on for Hater and Loser of the Week. I mean, I've said this before. There are so many haters and losers out there. It's incredible.
It's insane.
I don't know. It's crazy because there's a lot of idiots and losers out there, and they just keep giving us fodder here. So I don't know.
A lot of content to pick from.
A lot of content. So I'm not going to spoil it because the Chase Elliott or the situation may be my hater or loser of the week. We'll see.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll get to that here later in the show. So we did kind of fiddle fart around there, even though I said we shouldn't. But anyway, there's a lot going on in Tennessee athletics right now. So let's just dive right into it. We're going to get to the Lady Vols. They're in the World Series coming up, actually starting on Thursday. There's some basketball roster news. We've been patiently waiting for the past several weeks, past couple months for that. And a lot of it hit today, which was the deadline for the transfer or for players to declare whether they're coming back or not. Football, I was thinking the other day, Harb, we're 3 months out. It's crazy. 3 months out. And it's about that time of year when they start announcing times for these games, especially the ones in September. And we got a couple of those today. So we'll get to that here shortly. And also, like I said, hater and loser of the week. But let's start with Tennessee baseball. Since we recorded last, I'm pretty sure the Diamond Vols took 2 out of 3 in South Carolina at whatever their field's called over there, Gamecock Stadium. I know the name of it. I can't remember. Anyway, it's not Colonial Life or it's not Williams-Brice, but whatever their baseball field is. Anyways, the Vols have stunk on the road this year. It really had a chance to sweep that series. Tony Vitello made just a bonehead move in the Saturday game, or that would have been the Friday game because they played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but made a bonehead move in that, costing Tennessee the game on Saturday, or a legitimate chance to win it. And ended up taking 2 out of 3. It was only their 3rd and 4th true road wins of the season. And went to the SEC tournament as the 7 seed and didn't make it out of the single elimination round, which I think we've all talked on here, and even in the basketball side of it, we won baseball last year, we won basketball last year, so there wasn't that pressure to win from the fan base or even care or want to be honest, I want to win it if we go there, but you got to look at the big picture. That's not what we're here for. We're here to win the big one, the big dance. And I was really worried that Tennessee might get hot, make a run in the SEC tournament, and really wear themselves out before the NCAA tournament. And the only good thing that would have come from that is they probably would have hosted, but I'm not so sure that they would have anyways. But I don't know. Harb, what do you think about where Tennessee baseball is as we head into the big dance, which starts Friday night? Tennessee's heading over to Clemson. Clemson's the overall number 4 seed. Charlotte, Tennessee will play them on Friday. Also, Lipscomb's there, who won the A-Sun. Tennessee beat them 10-0 earlier in the year. I don't know. What's your thoughts on how this thing is set up for Tennessee?
I don't know exactly how you look at it, but based on just kind of how you just spoke on it, I think we've got 2 different viewpoints on it. And I am going to harp on this. But just kind of wore off a little bit because it's been so long since we spoke last. But everybody loves to give Rick Barnes hell. Okay.
They do.
It's time. If you're going to continue to give him hell, it's time to start giving Tony Vitello some. Because Tony Vitello kind of gets the Josh Heupel treatment when he's been here longer, had better teams, and came up shorter. And I want to preface this by saying I love Tony Vitello. I do. But what he did in that first game of that doubleheader in Columbia, South Carolina, was one of the biggest boneheaded moves that I've seen out of a college baseball coach. Who was pitching? Was it Dolander?
Yes, it was Dolander.
Dolander was throwing an absolute gem, one of his best games of the year. Had a shutout going. I believe it was the 6th inning. Had 1 or 2 outs. I think it was 1. 2 runners on. You know, pitching that good. Hell, he had 9 or 10 strikeouts. You got to trust your guy, get out of the jam. Instead, Vitello decides to pull him. Keep in mind we're up 1-0. At the end of the 6th inning, we're down 6-1.
Yeah, it was
and obviously if you bring in a reliever and he throws 1 pitch and gets a double play, you're like, okay, good move.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, he did bring in Chase Burns in that situation, and Chase has been pretty good since moving to that role he's in as quote unquote a closer or a long reliever. But I just didn't understand, and I think I tweeted it. I really I'm totally lost on, especially in college, and I just don't understand what the motives are, what the thinking is on some of these pitching changes. I mean, his pitch count wasn't high. The only run he had given up was a solo home run in the first inning. After and he struck out the side in the first inning. South Carolina wasn't doing anything against him. Now, we weren't hitting the ball either, but I don't know if Tony was trying to save him for the SEC tournament. We didn't even get out of the first round in the SEC tournament. But I don't know. It was really odd move, head scratching, bonehead move.
And you also said that we didn't have a lot of pressure on us going into the SEC tournament. And in regards of winning the whole thing, I would agree with you. But with a roster like ours, you've got to get out of the first round. You have to. I don't care who you're facing. You got to at least win 1 game. And I understand, you probably have to win it to even get in the realm of possibility of hosting a regional. But just a little momentum going into regionals. And you come out and you get 1 hit. I mean, pitching was fine. You give up 3. But the sad reality is 80% of the time, if we give up 3 outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, we're not going to win. And I hate to say that, but I was actually having a conversation with a guy at work about this last week. This is not a good lineup that gets cold a lot. It's a bad lineup that gets hot every once in a while. And and trust me, I do not like to be the Debbie Downer when it comes to Tennessee sports. But I mean, we've played 50, 60 games. I've seen enough. It's a big enough sample size.
Yeah.
And and maybe now that we don't have to play SEC competition every day, it'll get better. Kind of like UConn in March Madness when they finally got out of the Big East. But
it's kind of like Tennessee. This baseball team is very similar to the basketball team in a way because, I was a big proponent of the basketball team all year. Where I kept saying the numbers are telling me that Tennessee basketball is an elite national championship contender, and the numbers did say that, but the product on the court said something totally different. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. And a lot of that, I was listening to a baseball podcast college baseball podcast I stumbled on last night, and they went region by region, briefly hit on every region of the NCAA tournament. When they got to the Clemson region, they kept saying Clemson got a bad draw. They're the 4 seed, but Tennessee's the best 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. They were a fringe, possibly host team if they made a little bit more noise or were better on the road. And it's Tennessee's they didn't say Tennessee would win. It's going to be tough because it's at Clemson, but they said out of all the regions, this was one where a 2 seed is going to upset a 1 seed or has a really good chance. So it's, I don't know. It's one of those things like we're all waiting for there's a lot of talent on this team. They've recruited very well. There's a lot of talent on the mound. But you lose. Somebody texted me the other day and said, what was the wording? This year was a big flop. And I had a hard time agreeing with that. Yeah, it was a little disappointing, but I mean, Tennessee still won 15 SEC, or was it 16 SEC games? It's just conference, man. It'll eat you alive, and they're a very good team nationally. They're I think the number 29 seed overall out of 64. So yeah, I think they're a tie. I think they're probably a little bit better than where they were seeded, to be honest. But I don't know. It's like we're just waiting for them to bust loose. Where is these All-American pitchers? When is Dolander, Burns, Beam, Lindsey, all these guys going to just shut everybody down and put goose eggs on the board and let the offense score 5 or 6 runs and win a game? They don't have to go out like last year and score 8, 9, 10, 11 runs and bash home runs. Because this team, they can hit home runs, they can hit for power, but not on a consistent basis like last year. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. They've been bad on the road, like we said, and they're having to travel this weekend. So that's what worries me moving forward in the NCAA tournament with this team is going on the road.
I agree. And to that first point you made, I don't think this season was a huge flop. I think the voters and the national media perceived it as a massive flop because obviously hindsight's 2020, but we should not have been preseason number 2. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, hell, how many guys do we have drafted? 11? Like between
there was 10 starters that were drafted off of last year's team.
Right. And
that's think about that. There's only 9 players on the field.
Right. Yeah.
That's the whole field.
You lose, I don't know, for argument's sake, we can say our top 10 players, which obviously we kept a couple of them, but we shouldn't have been the number 2 team just solely based on losing a whole starting lineup. Massive flop, no. Disappointing, yes. I thought the offense was going to be better this year, but I also thought
there were some players on this team, and maybe they break out, that I've been disappointed in. 2 of them are pretty obvious, I think. One of them is Maui Ahuna. I mean, he came in with all this hype. He's not had a bad year, but it's not the year that we all thought or expected. I mean, he was the number 1 recruit in the transfer portal, All-American at Kansas, just raked, and he's not been anywhere near the player statistically that he was. And I know he's been hurt statistically that he was at Kansas. Another one is Blake Burke over at first base. Hits a lot of home runs, hits for power. He doesn't put the ball in play enough. He's not been, I don't know, he's just a sophomore. He's still got more time here. But he's one of those guys, lot of talent at the plate. He has gotten better. He didn't play all that much last year, played sparingly, but he started pretty much every game this year. But he's kind of stunk it up down the stretch this year.
Yeah. I also think that I do think our draw was kind of odd. I did not expect us to go to a region that is hosted by a top 4 seed. I thought we would kind of end up somewhere in like the 7 to 11 range, somewhere in that general region. But yeah, we're gonna have to finally nut up and play away from Knoxville.
Well, you think about it. We're a 2 seed, so that should be what, 17, 18, 19, 20-ish range.
Right.
But we're going up against the 4 overall seed. That doesn't it doesn't make sense. But
no,
when you look at it that way, but where they put us, I mean, they put us a lot lower than where I think we all thought they should be. I mean, let's look at the 2 seeds. You got over in the Fayetteville region, you got TCU. They're pretty good. In the Terre Haute region, Indiana State, you got Iowa, Big Ten champs, 42-14. They're obviously ahead of Tennessee. Because Indiana State is the 14 overall seed. Then you've got in the Stillwater region, Dallas Baptist is the 2 seed. In the Nashville region, Oregon's the 2 seed. In the Charlottesville region, Virginia, East Carolina, and you got Duke at Coastal Carolina. You've got Campbell is a 2 seed in the Columbia, South Carolina region. 2 seed is UConn in the Gainesville region. Maryland is the 2 seed in the Wake Forest region. Boston College, who Tennessee lost to earlier this year in Knoxville in a midweek game, is the 2 seed in the Tuscaloosa, which I was a little surprised out. There's 2 teams that surprised me that were in the top 16, Auburn and Alabama, but we'll talk about that later. In the Miami, Florida region, you got Texas as the 2 seed. In the Stanford regional, Texas A&M's a 2 seed, who Tennessee lost to in the SEC tournament. In the Baton Rouge regional, LSU, you got Oregon State as the 2 seed. West Virginia is the 2 seed in the Lexington, Kentucky region, which is a mess. If you haven't heard, we'll talk about that shortly, hopefully. In the Auburn, Alabama region, you got Southern Miss. And then you got us. So Southern Miss won their conference. West Virginia was one of those teams that were projected to host, and they kind of stumbled late. Texas A&M moved up quite a bit. That was a little surprising. Stanford is the 8 overall seed, and they're a 2 seed in Texas A&M. But I don't know. I think Tennessee is the second best team in that region that they're in the Clemson region. I don't know. I worry about them being on the road. I don't know. It's
no, for good reason. We have not proved much on the road this year. That's the pessimistic way of looking at it. Can't hit on the road. Can't beat nobody. We've shown flashes of it. But the optimistic side is you get out of Knoxville, but you also get away from SEC competition. And I briefly said this earlier, but it's kind of like what Danny Hurley said after UConn won the national championship in basketball. Because this Tennessee baseball team is fairly similar to that UConn basketball team. They started the basketball season off about 15 or 16-0. Everybody had them in the top 5. I think they got up to 3 at one point. And then they got into Big East play and pretty much went 500 in conference play.
Yeah.
And they hovered between like 20 and 25. I think they might have fell out of the polls at some point.
They did.
Got out of the Big East tournament, and then they got in the NCAA tournament and literally beat the brakes off everybody. And in his post-game presser after a national championship, which Danny Hurley is a very blunt individual. I love hearing him speak. If you haven't heard him speak much, YouTube him. It's great.
He's a Hurley.
Absolutely. But, I mean, he was just straight up blunt. He was like, no disrespect to the teams we played in the NCAA tournament. They're all good competitors, but I mean, hell, we finally got out of Big East play, and it was a lot easier. He's like, we played in the best conference in basketball, which is debatable. But he's like, we played in the best conference, and it made us better for the big dance. And if you want to look at this Tennessee baseball season optimistically, we kept our head above water. We finished around 500 in SEC play. Pretty much took care of business against most of the other teams. Now you're out of SEC play. See what you can do against what seems to be inferior conference competition.
I was looking at the odds. Tennessee has the 8th best odds to win the World Series, plus 1,900. Clemson was either 5 or 6 at plus 1,600. So they're right there next to each other, and they're in the same region. I don't know. I don't know of any like message boards or anywhere to read how other schools or people are thinking. But from all I've read is they felt like Clemson is going to have, out of all the 1 seeds, they're one of the ones that has a tough road to get out of their own region. Another one they said maybe Auburn with Southern Miss. Southern Miss won the Sun Belt, I believe, is where they're at. 41-17, consistently in the NCAA tournament. Made a run at Omaha last year against LSU, but like I don't know, East Carolina and Virginia could be an interesting regional if those two get to face off with each other. Where's the other one at? Campbell in South Carolina over in Columbia. Remember, Tennessee had all they could handle, all they wanted, and then some with Campbell last year in Knoxville. Alabama hosting Boston College. That could be one to look at.
Quick question.
Okay.
Does Clemson have the best player in college baseball this year?
I do not know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know much, if anything, about Clemson.
I've watched probably a total of about 4 minutes of Clemson baseball this year, just because they came on after a game or if there was a game plan at work or something like that. But I forgot the kid's name, and I hate that because he's a hell of a player. But somebody compared him, he's like the Ohtani of college baseball. Like he's a weekend starter for him. He's got around like a 3 RA, and he also is hit for like 350, like 18 home runs, 60-something RBIs. I mean, hell, it's pretty good to me, which obviously there's 9 people on the field. But that was just a general question because I haven't really kept up with a ton of college baseball outside of Tennessee this year.
I know they've been playing really well right now. That's all I know. I do know that about them from what I've.
Did they win the ACC tournament? I'm assuming
they did. They pounded Miami on Sunday to win the ACC tournament.
Is Miami hosting a regional, or are they a 2 seed?
Miami is hosting. Yes,
they are. Gotcha.
Well, there was at one point the bracketology had Tennessee going to Coral Gables, and then another for the last week and a half, the bracketologies had Tennessee going to Indiana State, Terre Haute.
I saw that.
But there's really, I didn't realize this. There's really no rhyme or reason for what the committee does. It's a lot different than it is in men's and women's basketball. There's no bracketologist that the committee is feeding info like they do Lenardi and some of these other guys that kind of, they put stuff out there while it's not official. They do feed them info. There is no bracketologist that I'm aware of for college baseball. They depend a lot on the RPI, which Kansas State's coach went off on. They did not get in. They beat Oklahoma, and I think they beat there was another program in the Big 12 they beat, maybe Oklahoma. No, it wasn't Oklahoma State. Anyways, I can't remember who it was. And they didn't get in just solely because their RPI was 20 points lower than those two programs. But they had the head-to-head on them, and the coach made the point, which we've talked about in basketball. What's the point of playing games if you're not even going to keep that into consideration? But I don't know a whole lot about how they determine all that, but apparently they use a lot of RPI as their big thing, because I think 15 of the top 16 in RPI are hosting this weekend. I think Tennessee was like in the 20 or low 20s or something like that in RPI, which is where they were pretty much most of the year. So I don't know. I'm interested to see. Tried to get online today and get tickets and got in line on the failing Ticketmaster, and it went on sale at 4:30. It was through Clemson. Got on there at 4:30, and I was 110th in line, and it kept trickling down. 3 or 4 minutes went by. I was like, oh, I might get in here. Got in the room, no events available. So there was no tickets. I guess they got rid of all of them. So Dr. Nease, my uncle, was wanting to go, and we still may try to find tickets and go because it's not far from Sparkle City. But I don't know.
We need to cancel Ticketmaster.
I'm sick of Ticketmaster, man. I actually got to get on there and start looking for Virginia tickets in Nashville, and I'm dreading it. I'm absolutely dreading it.
Real quick, similar thing happened to me. Tyler Childers had a show in Johnson City about 3 weeks ago. And when they went on pre-sale about 6 weeks ago, I guess, I got in line like 30 minutes before it started. I got in line that said there was like 5 people in front of me. I was like, okay, cool. Well, the screen glitched, and then it said there was over 1,000 people in front of me. And that was at Freedom Hall, and if y'all are familiar with Freedom Hall, it's not very big.
The old home of the Louisville Cardinal.
So it's not good. So anyway, I get in there. All the tickets were bought. Come to find out, Ticketmaster bots went in there and bought all the tickets. And the most expensive ticket for that show on pre-sale was like $120. Then you go on Ticketmaster and look, and the cheapest one was like $280.
Jeez.
So you got Ticketmaster price gouging these fans and these artists, and it needs to be stopped. To put it bluntly, it's chicken shit, and I personally will not stand for it. I don't know how to boycott it, but I'm going to.
Yeah,
now, I think that's something everybody can agree with.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Ticketmaster. My first real encounter with Ticketmaster was the Garth Brooks concert at Neyland Stadium in 2019. I actually got in pretty quickly and got the pick of the litter seats on where we wanted to sit at, but yeah, I've not had. I think the Music City Bowl a couple years ago left a sour taste in my mouth. I know Lady Vols was fuming about that one because basically what happened was Ticketmaster bought all the tickets and resold them to Tennessee fans and just gouged our eyes out. I mean, it was crazy what we paid for Tennessee versus Purdue. It was I think it was New Year's Eve, December 30th. And I mean, our tickets were like almost near $200 a piece. I mean, for that, seriously, I don't care to pay $100, but yeah, I can't wait. I actually may do that later tonight after we record. Looking for tickets to the Virginia-Tennessee game in Nashville, September 2nd, which we'll talk about kickoff time a little bit later. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Ticketmaster. It's sad, really.
Very sad and unfair.
But we'll see how the Vols do. It's like we've said, it's Clemson is no cakewalk. Plus, we're on the road, so we'll kick things off Friday. I think Friday, 6 o'clock, Tennessee takes on the 49ers from Charlotte. Clemson plays Lipscomb, the Bison, at 1 p.m. on Friday. So those two losers will match off in an elimination game. Got to win this. Tennessee's got to win this first game against Charlotte. You don't want to go into that losers bracket right out of the gate, because if you do, you basically got to win that game. You got to beat the loser of the winners bracket final, and then you got to beat the champion of the winners bracket final twice. So you basically got to win 4 games in 2 days to do it. Now it's tough. So biggest key right out of the gate, beat Charlotte, then worry about Clemson and what you got to do from there, because it really, your odds increase at that point. So we'll see. Friday night, 6 o'clock, Tennessee versus Charlotte, and then hopefully Clemson on Saturday night. Lady Vols, while we're talking stick and ball sports, Lady Vols won their regional pretty handily in Knoxville a couple weeks ago, and then beat the Hoosiers, Indiana, and then they came back to Knoxville and took care of the Longhorns. If you're watching on the video on the YouTube version, horns down, and hope we don't get fined for that.
Real quick, You'll get a kick out of this. The night that Tennessee beat Indiana in a regional, me and a couple of my buddies were down in the Old City, and we're at Old City Sports Bar. Well, the entire Indiana softball team was in Old City Sports Bar.
Really?
Or maybe not the entire, but there was about 12 or 15 of them at least. And a buddy of mine, who I will not name, had a little bit too much chocolate milk. And he's not a Tennessee fan. Don't keep up with it. Well, they're walking by us, and he's just a genuinely nice fella. He's like, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, ladies," and went to high five them, and they all gave him a look like like he had just pissed in their bowl of cereal. And then I explained to him that they got beat like a drum and had to exit Knoxville, Tennessee with an L. And they felt extremely bad just because he's a genuinely nice human. But it was extremely funny, though. Yeah, I figured you'd get a kick out of that.
That is funny. I like it, though.
And then we absolutely decimated the Texas Longhorns. That was beautiful.
Yes.
I watched a good amount of the first game, and I watched the entirety of the second game. That day that we played the second game, that was the most softball I watched all day. I literally watched college softball from the first game that came on till that damn Utah game that didn't go off until 1
It's
o'clock.
good. It's good, isn't it? I told you all earlier in the year.
Softball.
It's good.
I love softball.
I wish I could sit down and watch it more this time of year. I say this in basketball season too, but I got a lot going on work-wise right now, and I just don't get to sit down and watch a lot of softball. But obviously, watch the Lady Vols quite a bit this year. But I didn't get to see any of the Saturday game except walked in the house. We were up at my grandparents'. Walked in the house. Tennessee's up 4-0. Literally, right when I walked in the house, grounder to second, into the outfield, under the right fielder's glove, bases clearing. I don't think that's a grand slam, but it was, basically a grand slam. Cleared the bases. Tennessee wins 9-0. But just an electric atmosphere at Sherry Parker Lee Stadium there on campus. And the 8th World Series appearance for the Lady Vols in program history. I really like their chances to go out there and make some noise. I'm not saying they're going to win it because Oklahoma right now, I mean, anybody is beatable. Oklahoma's won, I think, 49 games in a row. And I don't know. I hope the pressure gets to them. They're playing in their hometown. They've won back-to-back titles. They're heads and shoulders favorites to win a third in a row. But a lot I've read, Tennessee's their biggest threat, even though they're the 4th seed, and we got to play Bama right out of the gate on Thursday afternoon. We're playing the Crimson Tide. They've got Montana back, their pitcher, Montana Fouts, All-American, like legend down there. All the girls love her. Everybody, she's like the softball player in Alabama. So Tennessee's going to have a tough time on their hands. But hey, we got Kiki Malloy, we got Ashley Rogers. We got just as many studs as anybody else does, and we've got, but I think behind Oklahoma, we've got the lowest ERA in the tournament. So, or for all season. So Tennessee's got just as good a chance as anybody to go out there and take down the mighty Sooners in Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. And I will say, if Oklahoma does continue this stretch and does win it all, this is arguably the greatest college softball team of all time, right? You lose one game and you dominate in the postseason.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Tennessee last year, baseball. Yeah. And some have compared, I know we talked about the NCAA or the men's NCAA tournament, but Wake Forest and Tennessee Wake Forest this year, they're the number 1 overall seed. Tennessee last year, a lot of similarities with how they've won games, the streaks they've gone on, but Oklahoma softball's they went 49 in a row, I think is what they're at right now. That's crazy.
They lost like their 8th or 9th game of the year, and they've won out since then.
I mean, Florida State's in this thing. They've won 21 out of their last 22. I mean, Tennessee's been hot as a firecracker, and their only loss was the very last day of the regular season. And I'm not saying they threw that game off, but there was nothing really for them to play for. They had locked up the 1 seed in the SEC tournament. They had won their SEC regular season. They lost 4-2 to South Carolina. Oh, well, who cares? But other than that, Tennessee's just been just as hot as anybody else in the country. So Well, they lost 2 out of 3 at Arkansas. I guess that can't really say that. But anyway, I think Tennessee's got just as good a shot as anybody. They cakewalked through the regionals. I don't want to say they cakewalked through Texas, but they took care of business and put Texas away, and they never really threatened the Lady Vols. So we'll see.
Well,
I'm
they
excited
with your
about it.
chest, Niece. They did cakewalk Texas. I mean, they dog walked them, cakewalked them, whatever you want to say. They did. And after looking at that, I think we're the 4 seed, or at least we were in supers.
Yeah, we're the overall 4 seed. Bama's the 5.
I think we're the second best team remaining out of the 8 that are traveling to Oklahoma City. I truly do.
Yeah, I read several previews of the World Series, and most everybody points to the Lady Vols as being one of the top 2 threats.
I mean, we've got the pitching, we've got the batting, and good sound fielding. There is no reason that we can't at least go to the final and by God win the damn thing.
I mean, it's a 2 out of 3. When you get to the final, it's a 2 out of 3, best 2 out of 3 series. So it's not just a one and done.
It's going to be tough if they are fortunate enough to advance to the final. I don't know how the bracket looks. We may have to play Oklahoma before the final. But it's going to be tough playing a team that good and beating them twice in their home state.
So we'll have to play Oklahoma. If we win against Bama and Oklahoma wins, I'm trying to pull the bracket up. We'll have to play them. Probably
1 versus 4.
Yeah, probably. And that's what's happened here. So we would play. So Tennessee plays Thursday, 12 o'clock. Well, that'd be 1 o'clock Eastern. Oklahoma takes on Stanford later that afternoon on Thursday. So those 2 winners would play each other in game number 7, which is on Saturday afternoon. So Tennessee would play the 1 seed Oklahoma if we were to beat Alabama on Friday. So other ones, you've got the 3 versus 6 is Florida State versus Oklahoma State. 7 seed Washington taking on the 15 seed Utah Thursday night. So there's 2 parts of the bracket. It's basically there's a 14 bracket up here. There's a 14 bracket down here. And they play these things out till they get to the championship series. So Tennessee's in a bracket or in a tournament basically with Oklahoma, Stanford, and Alabama. So it ain't going to be easy. But, I mean, I think teams are looking at Tennessee and be like, oh, I don't want to play them.
A dark horse team to look out for is Utah. Like I said, I watched them the other night, and obviously small sample size, but they put a licking on. I forgot the team they played. It was another West Coast team. I can't remember exactly who it was, but them ladies can play too. But like we said, outside of Oklahoma, we got the best chance out of anybody. And from what I've seen, I mean, we can get it done. I mean, would I put my savings account on it? Probably not. But we can get it done against the mighty Sooners.
Let's go do it. Let's go out there and take care of Alabama first. Get them out of the way.
Right. Yeah, we're not worried about Alabama athletics.
I mean, we talked about that last show. We're beating Alabama and everything. So
yeah.
Go out there tomorrow, ladies, and take care of business the way you should.
Does their former baseball coach have a 2-leg parlay on the Lady Tide in the World Series and Bama to win and the baseball team to win the regional?
We haven't really talked about that on here, but that is we won't today because we got so much other stuff. But that is if you haven't looked that up, Alabama baseball coach was basically fired because he was back channeling parlays in to a sports book there in Cincinnati, Ohio, outside of Great American Ballpark on his own team. And they've got video footage and phone records that put everything back to him. And it's a crazy story if you haven't read it. It's pretty wild and is almost stupidity because nobody bets on. There's not a lot of bets on college baseball, and they put in a pretty large bet on a couple different parlays or I think one of them was a money line, and then one was a 2-leg parlay, and they put a pretty large amount of money on it, and that drew red flags right out of the gate. This is stupid. Just stupid.
Cannot do that.
I mean, is he not making enough money that he doesn't need to gamble on his own team? I mean,
or was he not funneling information to like his buddies?
It was so basically two Cincinnati
or were they doing
coaches.
it through his buddy's name?
It was so there was the story is, and we'll keep this brief. The story is a guy walks into the sports book there outside of Great American Ballpark where the Reds play, puts in two very large bets on LSU and Alabama series. It was at LSU. There was nothing funny happened on the field. There was no like throwing the game. He just put bets. They put bets on it. So basically there's video footage of him taking this guy in the sports book, taking a phone call. They've matched up the phone records to where it was the Alabama coach calling the guy in the sports book, but also two coaches for the Cincinnati Bearcats baseball program have been let go. They had knowledge of it. And this guy that put the bet in is a dad of a current player for Cincinnati, and also coaches a pretty powerful youth baseball program, travel baseball program in the Ohio area, I think, is where it's either Ohio or Indiana, either way. The coaches at Cincinnati had knowledge of it and didn't report it. And they weren't involved. I don't think they've been involved in it. They're still investing, but they've been fired. So it wasn't just Alabama. There's been reaching implications all the way to the Cincinnati Bearcats. So just a crazy story. It kind of blew me away when I first heard about it. I was like, why is this guy betting on or putting bets in on his own team? I mean, it's crazy. And the players have been, there's nothing funny going on. They weren't throwing the game. They had no knowledge of it for Alabama. And no players in Cincinnati had any knowledge of anything. It was basically Alabama coach, this guy in Ohio, and the two Cincinnati coaches who it's not indicated that they even place bets. They just knew about it and failed to report it, which is, I guess, a no-no. But yeah, crazy. All right.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to take this transition,
Go ahead.
Take some of the load off your shoulders.
It's heavy, Harbin. Go ahead. Take a load off.
Speaking of underdog odds or plus signs in the gambling world, going over the basketball program, something that I'd say some of us didn't see coming. Fifth-year senior Josiah Jordan James returning to the Tennessee Volunteers, and get this, as a walk-on, funny enough. How crazy is that?
I've been waiting all day since I got that text you sent the group. I've been waiting all day to talk about this.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So Triple J coming back is really kind of icing on the cake with this recruiting class that's come in, which I think is really good recruiting class for Tennessee. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up some way too early college basketball polls, and I'm trying to find some later ones because they move them around from what happens in what you see after the Final Four changes till now because of the transfer portal and other things that goes on.
While you're looking, I can read that thing that Day sent in the group.
Yeah, go ahead.
So our comrade Day sent us some information when the news broke, and I'll read it real quick. It says, after talking with some people, Tennessee apparently didn't think James's return was much of a possibility until this weekend. On Sunday, he reached out to some people around the program to explore the feasibility of returning as a walk-on, and by Tuesday, it was something that was starting to feel real as people looked into the logistics. After having several workouts with NBA teams, including Portland, Dallas, and Milwaukee, as well as attending the G League Combine, James didn't get the feedback that made him comfortable staying in the draft. There were several teams allegedly who were interested in signing him to a two-way, but it didn't sound like anyone gave him a guarantee that they would take him in the second round. Had James not used up his initial eligibility and stepped away from the team and all team activities, he would not have been allowed to return as a walk-on per NCAA rules. So pretty much, if he would have just said, I'm coming back for one more year, we wouldn't have got one of the guys we got in the transfer portal, or we wouldn't have got one of these freshmen coming in because we'd have been won over on scholarships. which we still technically are, but Julian Phillips is going to clear that, and he'll end up at Tusculum or Carson Newman or LMU or something like that, and we wish him all the best.
So, speaking of Julian Phillips, while we're on this, he came out this afternoon. Today was the deadline for all this stuff. That's why there's been a lot going on today. Julian Phillips is going to stay in the draft. I was listening to the Hoops Southbound podcast, those guys we had on earlier in the year, and I went on their show during the season, and they were talking about the NBA Combine. Apparently, Phillips had a pretty good combine, graded out pretty well. So I think he's going to stay in with hopes that he gets drafted, and if he doesn't, he's going to look around to see where he can go. And I looked at the list of schools that have contacted this guy, and I think it's probably easier to list the schools that haven't contacted him to play next year. So a lot of SEC schools, a lot of ACC, Big 10, Big 12, you name it, they're all on the list. But Tennessee,
but for one I saw, he's gonna have to take a big leap. I think we could all agree that he was I'm not gonna say he was a huge flop. I think that's a little aggressive to throw on an 18-year-old, but it was a little disappointing. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more aggressiveness out of him, a little bit better shooting, but the kid played hard, played good defense, and I think that's what a lot of these coaches are looking at now that his name's in the portal. And he's got athleticism out the wazoo in that aspect of upside.
Right. And I think with Triple J coming back to this, like we were talking earlier, I mean, we've got Vescovy back. Ziegler at some point will be back. Now, whether he'll be his old self, I have a feeling he will, but that injury takes a while. I mean, you're talking, he had surgery in, I think, April. So he's just a month and a half, almost 2 months out of surgery. He's probably got another 3 or 4 months to go before he really gets cleared to really maybe start doing some full-on basketball activities. I'm going off my timeline, which is going to be a lot slower than Zakai Ziegler's return. He was a lot younger than me when I had my ACL, and he's also a college Division I athlete. I was not. So I was back doing pretty much everything in 5 months, but wasn't fully I couldn't pitch baseball. I had trouble running. Not trouble running, but I mean, I had issues running. But I had surgery January. By that next December, I was playing basketball full 100%. So obviously my timeline is not, he's rehabbing 6-7 days a week. I was rehabbing 3. So, but anyways, this Tennessee basketball team, I think when we all first looked at it and people first started looking at what was coming back, they're like, oh, these guys aren't going to be very good next year. But with what Rick Barnes and his staff brought in, I was texting you all earlier today, and I said Tennessee's top 10, and every way too early poll I'm seeing, they are top 10. I think you said you thought they might be anywhere 14 to 19, which I could see that. But I just think with what they've added, they've basically reloaded. Dalton necked 20.2 points a game last year at Northern Colorado. Chris Ledlam, I'm a little up in the air on because he averaged 18.8 per game at Harvard, but that's at Harvard. I mean, obviously the SEC level competition is different. Then you got Vescovy, Ziegler. This is a projected starting lineup, and then Adu. But then this was before Triple J announced today that he's coming back. So I think that just makes them even better. I mean, and you look at where they're at with the rest of the country projection-wise, you got Houston at 6, defending national champions UConn at 5, Michigan State at 4, Marquette at 3, Kansas 2, and Duke at 1. I mean, Tennessee might slip into the top 5 or top 6 with a Triple J coming back. The only thing, and I think Day tweeted or texted us about it, and I texted some others about it, we're a little thin, I think, at point guard, especially with BJ Edwards leaving. So that's a concern of mine, a point guard. But the rest of the team, I think this team could be very good, top 10, top 15 all year next year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We've made a lot of good moves, but we do have a glaring gap at the point guard position, which, in my opinion, in college basketball is the most important position on the floor. which I mean, you got two guys that can handle that between Ziegler and Vescovy. Obviously, barring how Ziegler comes back from injury, I expect him to make a full recovery. I haven't heard anything bad about setbacks or anything.
Mm-mm.
But we got to pray that he comes back 100% because you saw how our guard play was after he went out.
Yeah.
And hell, I mean, we're gonna have to ask Ziegler to play 35 minutes a game. If the point guard situation looks like it does on paper, he's gonna have to play between 32 and 35 minutes a game every night, and he can, but that's not ideal, obviously, especially for a guy, because I'm sure in November and December he'll probably be on a minute restriction if he's even ready by the first of the season.
I doubt we see him especially November. Like when they go out to Maui, I doubt we see him.
When did he tear it? February?
March, his first of March, and I don't know when he had. I think he have surgery right before he had surgery because they said he was clear to fly to go to New York for the Sweet 16. So he had surgery like a week and a half before that. So
ACL now is a 6 months recovery for an athlete. With the way, I mean, that's changed over the last, I don't know, 10 years, because it used to be 9 to 12 months, pretty much how Achilles is now.
Yeah.
But I would say that he'll be 100% close to the beginning of the season. But if we see any of them in November in those early season tournaments and whatnot, it'll be minutes restriction, which is for the best. I mean, it's cool to say you won the battle for Atlantis, but in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter?
No.
When it comes to potentially having it,
it's just another cool trophy to put in your trophy case back at home.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a good gauge. Those tournaments are good gauges, but all the top teams are playing in those somewhere. It's just a good gauge to start your season. But it's like you said and I said, I don't know that we even see him in those. I could see him playing in December, but to get ready for conference play. But yeah, as far as November goes, I don't see that.
Maybe not.
But also, I was looking at this. That's just the projected starting lineup. But you got guys coming back. You got guys that are going to play some this year. I think that we've heard a lot about, but didn't play any last year. DJ Jefferson is a guy that's going to get out on the floor. Oh my word!
Freddie,
number 15. Who's number 15? Meshack. We're going to see
Shadrach, Meshack, and Abednego.
Yeah, there we go. I had a brain fart there. He's going to play pivotal extended minutes next year. He got way better as the year went along. I'm really looking forward to seeing his development. So this team's got a lot of weapons. I hope they're a better 3-point shooting team than they were last year. That was one of their downfalls. They just could not shoot from outside. I'm not buying this thing that goes around. Big Montana's talked about it and others that Rick Barnes' offense is outdated. Don't tell me that, because look what we did when we had all those guys in 2018, 2019. Was it outdated then? No, it's not outdated now. He runs a methodical pro-style offense, a lot of motion, a lot of sets, and it's not a run up and down the court and jack up a bunch of shots. They're not going to score 80, 90 points a game. But they've got to be efficient and they've got to rebound. And last year at times they weren't. So that's what they gotta correct and get better at. They were still good last year and they had a lot of flaws offensively, but they're going to play defense at a high level. They're probably going to rebound at a high level. They just got to clean up some stuff offensively. Other basketball news from Tennessee. We talked about Julian Phillips, but Olivier Comlois is obviously not coming back to UT. And I'm sorry I had this pulled up. He's going to stay I think he's withdrawing from the draft. Am I wrong?
No, I believe he said he took his name out of the draft, but is staying in the portal.
Oh, here it is. Yes. He has withdrawn his name from the NBA draft and now will consider transfer options. So he's definitely gone. I think last I read, West Virginia was reaching out to him.
Is he not going to go to Providence?
That was a great. I'm looking here. This is
was I wrong in that?
This is from 247 Sports. The 6'9" forward is receiving interest from Kansas State, Michigan, Baylor, Memphis State, West Virginia. He is taking a visit to Michigan, West Virginia, and Kansas State while receiving feedback from NBA teams. He competed in the NBA G League Combine. So I guess Providence is not on this list. So I think everybody kind of thought that because of the connection up there with Kim English, but doesn't look like that's the case. But there's another one that's that one was the one that surprised me that he wasn't back with Tennessee. I guess he just felt like he needed to change the scenery. And we talked about that, on an earlier episode of this show, but I am really intrigued. I don't want to get too excited because it's so far away, but I'm really intrigued by this basketball team going into next year. I think they've got a chance. I mean, they should compete for the SEC again, which is what we all want. They're in the polls I'm looking at. They're the top rated team in the SEC. You got Arkansas here in this poll at 10, Kentucky at 11, Alabama at 12. I'm trying to see if anybody else is in here from the SEC. A&M at 19. And that's it. But yeah, I saw Purdue is getting Edie back, and they were ranked 17th, 18th in this poll, so they'll probably move up. But a lot of action today as far as transfer portal, people dropping out, staying in the NBA draft process. That all had to come down today. So a lot of news there. But we'll keep you posted. Anything else happens with Tennessee basketball, this is the show for it. Because y'all know I'm a huge Tennessee basketball fan.
Speaking of the Big Orange, I'm going to take another transition off your hands. We're just in bizarro world.
I love it.
Yeah. Speaking of the Big Orange and timely deadlines and scheduling, we got some game times for the footballs. I hate that I just said that.
The footballs.
The University of Tennessee's football program. The game against Virginia Cavaliers in Nissan Stadium. Drum roll, please. We'll kick off at 11 a.m. Central Time.
Having flashbacks to LSU, Harbin.
Somebody tweeted out a GIF. It was one of those profusely sweating GIFs.
Yes, it was Nagy, Mark Nagy.
It said 11 a.m. Nashville, September 2nd. That is going to be ungodly hot.
And just think about this for a minute. Our plans as a group, the group I'm going with, I'm going to be coming from the beach, I think, that week. That Friday is when I come back. So I'm going to go straight from Charleston, South Carolina to Nashville. And the plan was to go to Lower Broadway on Friday night. Check out the sights and the scenes, listen to some music, drink some chocolate milk, and then get rested up and go to the game. Well, I don't know that that's going to happen now. It may still happen. We may have to postpone it and go Saturday night.
It'll still happen. You'll just not be feeling as chipper by kickoff as you would if it was an afternoon game.
I feel like these noon games God, I'm not a fan. I hate them. I don't mind them in November. I really don't. That Missouri game last year at noon, even though it was pouring rain, I was fine with that. But noon on September 2nd, and I know it's a TV deal, but I'm 2 thumbs down. I hate it.
Sad.
And unfair. What do you think about the game in the swamp at 7 o'clock?
That definitely makes things more interesting. If y'all don't know, our game against Florida at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium will kick off at 7 p.m. So we're gonna have a night game to see if we can get our first win in the swamp since 2003.
Yep.
20 years.
20 years. The 20-year anniversary.
I've seen some very early lines. I believe we're a double-digit favorite. It's I think it's around 10. Maybe it's 9.5.
Something like that, yeah.
Should win that ball game. But obviously, when you play in a place that you haven't won in 20 years, and you make it a night game, things get a little hairy. But am I worried about it? No, just because I think Florida is going to be fairly bad this year. I don't think I. It's kind of hard to argue that they'll be better than they were last year. I mean, they lost the guy that was all their offense, and outside of that, that team just wasn't very good anyway. You might be looking at a 5-7 Florida Gators football club, and it'd be nice to bury them early,
God,
just
I
really
love it.
deflate them. Because I mean, let's just face the facts. No matter how bad Florida is, if they have a home game against Tennessee, at least of recently, they go ahead and write that as a W on their schedule. They have that confidence against us, and they've earned it. But you go ahead and kick them in the teeth, and you win that game by 14, 20, or let's just say you cover. That could deflate them, and they win 4 damn games. And Cajun Butch Jones might be gone sooner than later.
It's just, I mean, when I saw the game time, I just thought about it's been 20 years since we've won there. Most of the time those games are at 3:30 or noon. There's been a few night games in there, I think. I went down to the 05 game at the Swamp. It was a night game, CBS, 8 o'clock. I think Tennessee was like third or fourth in the country coming into that game. Florida was top 10 or something like that. That was was it Chris Leak or CJ Leak? CJ Leak was here. And they did, it was all, Tennessee was not good that year for whatever reasons. They were bad. 5-7 football team by the end of the season, didn't go to a bowl game, but that place was, I mean, it was crazy. It was loud. We were in the upper deck in the end zone. It was wild. It was a wild atmosphere, and I expect the same thing this year, but there's blood in the water with Florida, and Tennessee needs to go down there. I don't care if it's at noon, 9 a.m., 7 p.m., or midnight. They got to go down there and take care of business. Tennessee is a better football team, a better football program right now than Florida. And I've already seen some, oh God, we're playing at the Swamp at night. It's just, we got to get over this. And we did a little bit last year, this being afraid of, oh, here we go. We got to go down there and play. We got to get over that stuff. If y'all are listening and you think that way, grow up. It's time to get over yourself.
I agree.
I don't want to say Tennessee is 100% back to where they're a legit national contender every year to go to a New Year's Six Bowl or compete for the SEC, because I still think they're a program that's growing. I mean, just look, and the roster still, this is year 3 of Heupel coming up, and he's still just now getting his guys floating through the program. So there's still a lot to be seen from him, but what he's done in the first 2 years, I mean, I know Vols Picks doesn't agree with that, but he's done a great job, and he keeps recruiting the way he's doing and keeps bringing in the style of players that he's bringing in. They're going to win 8 to 12 football games every year. And that's, what I want. I mean, I obviously want Tennessee to win titles. So at some point, 8 wins isn't going to be good enough. Right now, it's fine. Tennessee wins 8 or 9 games this year. Great.
Perfect. Also, I have another statement to the general public. This is not directed at anyone that is a week in and week out listener of the show, but if it applies to you, wear it on the chin. There's a lot of people that keep talking about Nico, which fine, he's great. But guess what? This is Joe Milton's football team. And if we are anywhere worth a damn this season, Nico will not start a game. This team's going to go as far as Joe Milton plays, and I think Joe Milton is going to play at an incredibly high level. He might get in talks of the dreaded H word. We all know he won't win it because he wears orange, and like Nease always says, piss on the Heisman and piss on ESPN. But for all the haters and losers and doubters of Joe Milton, and if you're watching the YouTube, we have the pin up right now.
Piss on him.
If you're a doubter of Joe Milton, don't be. Because I believe Brett Stanton has dubbed himself the leader of the Joe Milton fan club. And if he's the leader, I'm his first mate. I'm all in on Joe Milton. I love the guy. And he's got a cool story. He deserves success. So after all he's been through, he could have left when Hooker got the job. Give him the decency and quit talking about the damn kid that ain't even put shoulder pads on it at UT yet.
I'll be honest. I doubted him in the Orange Bowl last year. I texted you all and I said, quote, I don't think he's the guy, y'all. And then he proceeded to throw 2 touchdowns and lead Tennessee to pull away from, one of the top programs in the country right now. I mean, I know Clemson's
If he
not.
has that exact game every game, which obviously he's going to have worse games, but he's going to have some better games mixed in there, law of averages. We're going to win 10 or 11 games again.
Take care of the football. Tennessee's got to run the football, take care of the football. Everything else will take care of itself. They're going to score points. They just can't turn the football over, whether it be on offense or special teams. That's the facts. Milton can't turn the football over.
That's right.
That's why we were so successful. Hooker didn't turn it over at all. But if you're going to Nashville for that game, just be prepared. I was talking to a guy that interned for me years ago, and he's big tailgater for the big Titans fan, has season tickets to the Titans games there at Nissan Stadium, tailgates, and I think in Lot A, and he sent me a text this afternoon, and he was fuming about the game time. He's like, "You're kidding me." He said, "I'm going to have to get there at 5:30 in the morning just to get a good spot. And by the time I set everything up, by the time everybody starts rolling through, I'm going to have to tear everything down to go into the stadium." He was not happy. He was very ticked off about it.
The lone bright spot about that game kicking off at 11 a.m. is maybe ticket prices will go down.
That's true. And we'll have time, because Tennessee's a very big favorite against Virginia. We'll have time to go to Broadway afterwards.
Right. Which the 11 a.m. kickoff in Baton Rouge, that was fun because we started to hit the quote unquote nightlife at about 4 p.m.
Yeah. You all did. I didn't. I had to go back. Right. I had to go back east.
Yeah. That was an interesting evening. Different story for a different time. But yeah, 11 a.m. kickoffs suck until after the game if your team wins, because then you have a lot of the day to pretty much do whatever you want.
I'm looking forward to going to Tuscaloosa this year. I have been informed that Undy will be attending that game. I think Landry Stanton will be there as well, possibly. So
I plan on going. I talked to Landry and Undy both about going, but I will 99% be down there. May not be sitting with either group, but I will 99% be down there for that. So
if the setup's still there, my uncle's friend, his son is a student at Alabama, has basically a condo. You can throw a rock at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Was that the kid we met last year?
Yes. Gotcha. Great guys, even though they're Alabama fans. But right. Yeah, the plan is to go down there. I've got a little conundrum here. The Hornets have a home game that Friday night that I have to announce. So do I leave as soon as that game's over and head to Tuscaloosa, or do I get up at the butt crack of dawn and go to Tuscaloosa? I think a lot of it depends on the game, the kickoff time. If it's a night game, I'll probably stay here and get up real early and go down. But
I think either way, you just drive straight down after the Carter game.
I mean, I did it last year going down to Auburn. I got there at like 2 a.m. So it is what it is. Hell, everybody will probably still be awake anyways when I get down there. Friday night before Tennessee-Alabama game, and we were down there last time, and it was 3 or 4 a.m. before we went to bed. I mean, we were basically staying with a bunch of college. It was me and my uncle and the other guy's dad staying with a bunch of college kids in a college. It's not an apart. I mean, it's all college kids staying. They don't own it. They just like their parents buy it or lease it or whatever. And they, there was adults there, but it was mainly like college kids. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. They're still going strong, and I'm like, "God, I don't know if I can do this," but I powered through it, Harbin. I made it.
I'm proud of you.
2 nights in a row. All right, let's move on. We've got a lot of time to talk about football coming up over the next couple months. It's time for our hater and loser of the week nominees. So it's been a while since we recorded, and I want to pull up Harb. I believe you won the last hater and loser of the week award with Steve Kerr pretty handily, by the way. I'll have to go back and look at it here and see
About time I got on board.
Let's see if I can find the exact number here. But I forgot to mention before we get into the hater or loser, more Tennessee. We just won back to back now, second year in a row, the All Sports Championship in the SEC. So there you go.
Also, very quickly, while you're pulling up the numbers for that poll, rolling off of Tennessee athletics, shout out to Spencer Cross, Tennessee golf alumni, Sevier County native, Sevier County High School alum. Got a sponsor's exemption into the Visit Knoxville Open of the Corn Ferry Tour, hosted at Holston Hills this week. A phenomenal golf tournament. If you haven't been, get there next year. But in his very first Corn Ferry start, he made the most of it and got a top 10 in his first ever Corn Ferry start, which automatically gets him into this week's tournament. Don't know the name of it, but it's in Raleigh, North Carolina. So shout out Spencer. Good amount of people I know are buddies with him. I don't know him firsthand personally, but I've only heard good things, and he's obviously a hell of a golfer. So he's making East Tennessee and University of Tennessee fans proud right now.
There we go. Tennessee had a really good golf team this year too, so that's good.
Yeah, way better year than a lot of years in the past.
So not last week's, this is from May 24th. The nominees were, you nominated Steve Kerr. I nominated, put it on here as NASCAR fight haters, but people who break up NASCAR fights. Big Montana's was people who breastfeed in public. So you won with 50% of the vote. There was 14 votes, so you got 7. I got 21%. I got 21%, and Big Montana got 29. So congratulations. And there's no other. There's just us two. So I'll let you go ahead and nominate somebody for a hater and or loser of the week, or both.
Also, next time, can you try to tweet it out before like a week and a half after? Because I think people lost interest in it.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. All right. I went back and forth on this. There's one topic everybody's waiting on me to speak on, but my blood's too green to nominate them. So I'm going to go with the city of Lexington as my hater and loser of the week. Hang on.
Sound like me. You're getting a phone call. I just got a phone call from Dr. Nease, and it's concerning tickets to the Tennessee Clemson regional. So we might have breaking news before the show goes off.
Anyway, sorry about that. City of Lexington is my biggest hater and loser of the week. This weekend, the University of Kentucky baseball program is hosting a regional. Also this weekend is the Railbird Music Festival, which is, at least this year, one of the biggest country music festivals in the entire country. For those that don't know, the other 3 teams in that region and their fans, but most importantly, their players and staff, have nowhere to stay because all of the hotels are already booked for the festival goers. So the fans are shit out of luck, but the players and staff are staying in Kentucky's dorms, but Kentucky's charging them $180 a person, or $180 a room. I'm not sure.
I think it's $185 a night.
$185 a night
per room.
Stay in dorms, which, to be fair, read into it a little bit. UK has just built some brand new dorms So for the most part, brand new dorms for especially athletes at an SEC school, let alone regular students. Those are probably going to be nicer amenities than just a regular hotel. But city of Lexington, do better. This has got to be at least the 4th or 5th time that anything Kentucky related has been nominated for Haters and Losers of the Week. But the content just keeps rolling because they're a joke, and they
Now,
like the headline.
I'm gonna butt in here on yours. Do you mean the city of Lexington or the NCAA? Because I'm not sure this is really Lexington's fault. I mean, they didn't know when this festival was booked that there was going to be the NCAA. I mean, they could have looked at. They should have known. I mean, they could have known. But
all this tells me is that the University of Kentucky didn't think they were going to host a regional.
I can see that, and I think this is not one of my nominees, but I would almost put the NCAA in there, the failing NCAA. Why would you give it to them? If you look into this, they have to submit this stuff as part of. I mean, they're not really bidding on it, but they have to submit info to the NCAA, and part of that info is accommodations. So obviously, they gave this to the NCAA. I haven't seen if the NCAA has spoken about this or not. Maybe I should have looked that up. But I can't believe the NCAA went along with this and gave them that regional, knowing that the accommodations were so limited to none. I mean, families of some of these teams are having to stay over an hour away.
Yeah, it's insane.
And how does Lexington not have more hotels than this? I mean, that's the same size town as Knoxville, isn't it?
I mean, are people dying to go to Lexington, Kentucky?
I mean, I'm no, and nor should they ever.
I mean, there's two good things that come out of the state of Kentucky, and that's music and booze. And I've explained my reasoning why those two are so good.
This is when I wish Gavin was here. I mean, it is pitiful. You're right. It is pitiful.
It's just, and maybe the University of Kentucky shouldn't catch the blame on this one. It definitely falls more on the city and the NCAA, like you said.
I think, yeah.
But it's just comical because it's Kentucky. If this was in, say, Louisville, and it was the Bourbon and Beyond Festival that they have in Louisville every year, which is a great festival, it wouldn't be near as funny because it's Louisville, you know?
Yeah.
But it's Kentucky, so it's 10 times funnier. Everything they do is comical.
Is Remington 69 going to be at the Railroad Festival?
They are. It was funny because after you texted me that and asked me, I went back and looked at the lineup, and they will actually be there. I actually tried to go to this. I got a couple of buddies going to it. Great lineup if you like real country music, not Kane Brown and Sam Hunt and that other bullshit. If you like real country music, it's a good festival. But yeah, my hater and loser of the week is the city of Lexington, and we can touch on the failing NCAA.
I like it.
To that. So, all right, Mr. Nease, what's yours?
Great nominee from you. So I was telling Harb before we started recording, I had to do my own hater and loser of the week internally here with myself. I had 3. And like I said, he almost spoiled it earlier, but I have 3 nominees. One is Georgia fans. This is not 3 nominees to vote on, but I've narrowed it down to 1 out of these 3 for me. One is Georgia fans. Why do they keep tweeting about Tennessee all the time? What is their problem? You've won back-to-back national titles, and they constantly get on Twitter and tweet about Tennessee. Like, that's loser mentality. That is a loser mentality.
It's little brother syndrome, which obviously we don't have a whole lot of room to talk in the last 5 years. But I guess we beat it into their brains for so long. But yeah, it's sad to see. Which the rest of their athletic program's a joke. Besides tennis, I see Georgia fans brag about tennis all the time. Cool.
Their golf program is very, that it's
Right.
very
Yeah.
good.
Historically, they have probably a top 5 or top 10 golf program all time. But I mean, basketball or baseball program fired their coach. Basketball program went and grabbed the guy from probably their biggest rival, Florida. Florida was about to can his ass anyway, but they went and got him because they wanted him that bad. Cool, good for you. I don't think anybody was really competing with you to get him.
Oh,
And then football programs coming off back-to-back national championships, and like you said, which Twitter's not the real world. And,
I know.
but
Still,
they all just want to chirp Tennessee fans, and for what?
and like Tennessee, if you look, like Tennessee fans will just tweet something. I tweeted something about somebody tweeted something about Sanford Stadium and how ear-piercing loud it was, and I just commented like, yeah, I remember the time they put fake decibels up on the screen, and I woke up the next morning and my notifications had absolutely gone berserk for all
That
these
one got
Georgia
people
fans.
going.
I mean, a lot of Georgia fans, and there's Auburn people in it.
But you tweeted out a factual statement. I was there.
Yeah.
I saw it.
You were there. There was many of us there. It was correct.
I mean, there was a TV timeout where literally nobody was doing anything, and the jumbotron came on, and it said like 107.
Yeah,
decibels.
it was moving up, and it was going berserk. I'm like, this is fake. This is not real.
It was fake news.
That was one of my nominees. My other nominee was the Boston Celtics. I'm taking a little shot at Harb there, but I never really took them seriously as a hater and loser. They did come back from a 3-0 deficit to tie the series at 3. So we won't talk about it. I know you're hurt.
Is the part where I'm supposed to talk about it?
No.
Okay.
I'm sparing you from it. My other nominee was Chase Elliott, NASCAR driver, young hotshot driver, son of Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Georgia. He right hooked, not with his fist, but with his car. He right hooked Denny Hamlin in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Monday, since the race got rained out Sunday. And he is now suspended for a race, but he is my hater. I'm nominating Chase Elliott, NASCAR driver, former champion, as my most popular driver in the sport. He is this generation's Dale Earnhardt Jr. as far as popularity goes, but he is my hater and loser of the week for what he did on the track. Bubba Wallace did this same thing last year. He right hooked Christopher Bell, which is a no-no, especially where Chase Elliott did it at was the fastest part of the track at Charlotte through the tri-oval. Right hooked him. He went head first into the wall. Really could have been. It's very dangerous, to be honest. And I really almost wanted to nominate Chase Elliott fans, and I know one personally, in the mental gymnastics they've done the last few days to justify this, because Denny Hamlin, quote, bumped him, which he did. Denny Hamlin got up door to door with him, bumped him, kind of made him, Chase Elliott, scrape into the wall. Well, Chase Elliott just turned straight left and put Denny Hamlin into the wall head first. Denny Hamlin has his own podcast, which is a good podcast, but actually got on Twitter and tweeted data that they have. It's called SMT data, and it shows how they accelerate, brake, steer the car, and you can see where he turns it left. The data goes up and shows it. But Chase Elliott's my hater and loser of the week for the hissy-fitty through on the track, wrecking. And this isn't the first time he's done it. I have a sore spot in my heart for Chase Elliott. He cost Kevin Harvick a race at Bristol a couple years ago. They bumped on track, and basically Chase Elliott cost Harvick the race by he was laps down and he was holding him up in traffic. And then I think 2 years ago or last year, he came on the radio after he wrecked and said, "Where's the number 4 at? I'm going after him." So this isn't the first time he's done something stupid like this. And he's a better driver than that. He's, again, the most popular driver in the sport, already won the title, won a lot of races, but he's had a bad year, broke his leg snowboarding. why in the world is he snowboarding in the middle of the season? I know their season's different, February to November, so they don't really have a whole lot of off time, but he missed 6 races, I believe, with a broken leg. And now he's going to miss another one because he decided to. There's other ways to wreck people in NASCAR. And I know there's probably not a lot of NASCAR fans listening to this, but I like racing. I watch it every week. This last week was awesome. Indianapolis 500, Coca-Cola 600, Grand Prix at Monaco. I'm not a big fan of Grand F1, but Chase Elliott, my hater and loser of the week, you suck.
It's probably going to be an unpopular opinion. I don't keep up with it, but most of the people that I know that keep up with NASCAR are Chase Elliott fans. But I looked a little bit into it. Didn't really know what happened, but a lot of people were shocked and but at the same time, kind of gave NASCAR credit, which intrigued me because NASCAR is one of those sports that a lot of the fans just bash NASCAR, for making dumb decisions. And everybody's like, wow, NASCAR is actually being consistent for once. And I don't know, maybe they got a little bit of credibility because they stuck with some consistency, even if it meant suspending the most popular driver that they have.
Well, I'll say this. I was actually, my buddy that's a big Elliott fan, I said, I'm done with NASCAR. If they don't do something to him, and all the podcasts I've listened to, they actually came out before the suspension was announced. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who Chase Elliott used to race for, and him and Chase are buddies. He was like, I don't see how they don't suspend him. And Door Bumper Clear podcast said that Chase was wrong and it was dumb and stupid and he will be suspended. But I had my doubts because for those that know racing, Hendrick Motorsports, which is who Chase Elliott drives for, always gets favorable treatment on stuff. I mean, Chase Elliott drove around last year. They never black flagged him. His dang deck lid was hanging off of his car and he's driving around the track. They never even pulled him off the track. Anybody else would have been pulled off. Chase Elliott's the golden boy. He's the golden child. But NASCAR had to do it because Bubba Wallace, like I said, did the same thing last year, and he got a one-race suspension. They had to hold true to it, and they did. Chase Elliott's out for this week. They're in St. Louis at Worldwide Technology Speedway. That is probably a race that you can take a nap to. It was not a lot going on last year in that race. But the past 3 or 4 weeks, NASCAR's been great. A lot of good racing except for North Wilkesboro, but that was more of a nostalgia thing. They got to fix that. But yeah, Chase Elliott, hater and loser of the week nominee from Negative Niece.
Almost took a heel turn and nominated Michael Block.
Oh.
But I'm not going to because I'm bigger than that. Really, who the hater and loser of the week should be is whoever decided to give him that sponsor's exemption into the Charles Schwab. Because they set him up for failure.
That was so bad. That was, yeah, you're right.
But they knew they were going to get some cheap views out of it. For those that don't know, Michael Block is a teaching professional. He's not a professional golfer. He's a golf pro. There are 2 very different things.
Yes.
But he qualified into the PGA because certain golf pros qualify into, I think there's normally 20 each year or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Anywho, he played out of his mind, top 15'd it, got a $250,000, gets playing it next year. Well, he got a sponsor's exemption into the Charles Schwab because it was all the talk in the golf world. And he shot 83 on Thursday. For reference of people that don't keep up with golf, 83 is a number that Nease and I would throw up.
Yes. I shot 85 on Saturday for reference.
But I mean, the dude's cool.
It's a great story.
Also think when people were on his ass about that comment he made on that podcast, I think everyone took that comment completely out of context.
I haven't seen that. What'd he say?
So he was on there with Bob Menery, and Bob was like, So Rory is that much better than you. This is the clip. And Block was like, yeah, he's that much longer than I am. And Bob was like, so what do you mean? Like, is it just all distance? And Block was like, man, if I hit it as far as Rory did, I would be one of the best players in the world. He said, my wedges, my around the green, and my putting is world class. And what he said is a factual statement. Rory hits it 80 yards farther than he does off the tee. On holes that Michael Block's hitting 5 and 6 iron in, Rory's hitting a wedge in. And when he said he'd be one of the best players in the world, he did not mean he would be as good as Rory McIlroy or John Rahm or Scotty Scheffler. What he meant was he'd be in the top 300 and he'd be battling for a tour card, because that's how golf is. But everybody roasted him for that, took it out of context, and I think he got a bad draw on that. But either way, hell of a story. Really cool to see, but obviously that's kind of over with now. And there's absolutely no more basketball to talk about. I don't think anything major happened in the basketball world.
I just got sent a reel. Jimmy Butler, they asked him what he's going to listen to when he's warming up for game one. Morgan Wallen reposted it on Instagram. He's going to listen to Morgan Wallen with a variety of other artists, but Jimmy Butler's going to listen to some Morgan Wallen on the court as he gets ready to take on the Denver Nuggets. When's that start? Thursday? Tomorrow?
What are you talking about?
Don't hide from it. What did Thanos say? Run from it. Destiny
It's
arrives.
inevitable. It's inevitable.
Destiny arrives all the same, Harbin.
God, I've went insane because I am going to talk about it. Damn it. We were dead. No one gave us a chance. We got our butts whooped in game 3. And then they win game 4 and they pull me right back in. And I was the leader of talking the most smack about not letting us win one. I was pulling the Kevin Millar quote from the 2004 ALCS. City of Boston's the only team to come back from 3-0. They're the only city that can do it. It's a scientific fact. And then the way you win in game 6, when we went on that tip-in buzzer beater, I think everybody in the world thought that there was no way that we'd lose game 7. Then you come out in game 7, and very first play of the game, Tatum goes up for a floater and rolls his ankle stepping on somebody's foot. And is that an excuse? Absolutely not. It happened. But if you watched that game, you knew something was off. He couldn't move. He wasn't driving on offense. He was a jump shooter. And Miami was smart. It wasn't dirty at all. I saw some people online saying it was dirty, which is crazy. They would run a pick and roll, and the screener would be the guy Tatum was guarding, and they'd have Jimmy Butler running the point, and they would try to get a switch every time, whether it was Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Jimmy Butler, whoever. They would get it one-on-one, and they would blow right by him. And shit happens. Should we have taken him out? Probably. But he was also a great decoy on offense. We just wasn't making shots. The player that should take all the blame is Jaylen Brown. And I am a Jaylen Brown advocate. I'm his Paul Heyman, per se. This showing in the Eastern Conference Finals was a real bad look for a guy that's eligible for a $298 million contract. So I'm not going to get too long-winded about this, but the Boston Celtics have decisions to make this summer, because you're obviously giving Tatum every single penny that he can get. But do you really want to wrap up $600 million over 5 years between two guys that have gotten to the conference finals 5 times and gotten to the finals once? And those are the facts. Do I think so? Yes. But definitely got some decision-making to do.
You know more about it than I do. tag in on the NBA playoffs here recently. I only watched watched game 5, 6, and 7 of that series. So it was entertaining, except for game 7 really wasn't there at the end. So, but shout out to the Celtics. I mean, they dug themselves a pretty deep hole, and I thought they were going to come out of it. I really did. I thought game 7 at the Garden,
I
it was all there for them.
This is hilarious. I saw a tweet, and a black guy tweeted this out. So, in my opinion, it makes it funnier. He said what Nikola Jokic is going to do to Bam Adebayo in the NBA Finals is going to set back black people 100 years. And I think he's 100. I think he's 100% right. I think Jokic is going to put up silly numbers. On paper, Nuggets win this in 4 or 5, but hell, I thought we would win that one in 6 or 7. The finals is going at least 6 games just because it's bizarro land. It's going to go opposite. I still think Denver wins. I think they're the 4th largest favorite in the finals since 2000. The other 3 won. But obviously, after the past couple of weeks, anything can happen in the NBA playoffs.
You never know.
But if Jokic and Murray play the way they have been, Miami just does not have an answer for them. Which Caleb Martin will miss every damn shot he takes in the finals because the kid could not miss in the conference finals, which I'm already prepared for that, and I'll be mad, and that'll be the end of it.
That's how it rolls, Harbin. You'll learn. Did you get to watch any of Night of Champions, WWE from Saudi Arabia?
Did not, unfortunately. I watched clips.
It was actually pretty good.
The ending, they've been on a hot streak of pay-per-views.
They've been good lately. I'm pleasantly surprised.
The ending was awesome.
The ending was very good. My girl Bianca Belair lost the title.
I actually liked that move, though.
I do, and I was talking to Bianca's dad, and he said all of her nieces and nephews and all them Leonard had some of them over to watch. Guess it came on Saturday afternoon. I didn't watch it till Saturday night. But they were all upset. Bianca lost. They call her B. B lost. Bianca was actually kind of, I think, okay with it. She's been the champ for over a year, almost 14 months now. So, yeah, she lost, but the ending was great. That last match was very entertaining. Yeah. The bloodline is in shambles, Harbin.
The bloodline is no more.
Let me ask you a question. Why does the Usos super kick wrestlers 500 times during a match and they never go down, or it takes them forever to get pinned? But that's Shawn Michaels' finishing move. I guess it's all, it depends on what your finisher is. But I'm like, they wear out the super kicks.
Well, I mean, that's just kind of how professional wrestling's moved over the last few years. If you watch AEW, it's the same thing. It's a super kick party. But there's a lot of moves now that don't get taken as seriously as they used to. Like Jake Roberts' DDT used to be the most deadly finisher of all time, and now people use it as just like a regular move in the middle of a match.
Stone Cold used to talk about that on his podcast. The DDT is supposed to be a devastating move, and it's treated now as like just a move.
Yeah. Same thing with like a power bomb, stuff like that.
Well, it's like Kevin Owens' finisher is the stunner, but I don't feel like that's what brings people down for him. I don't know. But anyways, that was great. The bloodline is in serious trouble, if not done with. The Usos have split away, it seems like. But yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm not a big Roman Reigns fan, but he has been a good champion. But it's been over 3 years. I don't know when they're going to take that title belt off of him. But just to echo what you said, the last few pay-per-views I've watched have been really good.
They have. Well, Triple H is running creative.
There you go.
There you go. It's time to play the game.
But Mr. McMahon's still back there. He's back.
He is, but Triple H has more to do with it.
You think he's back there yelling at Hunter? Damn it, Hunter!
Probably.
Remember when Brock Lesnar threw the title belt at him when he walked backstage after he won the title, and Vince McMahon chased him down, screaming at him? It was. If you haven't seen that video, look it up. But
I have, yeah.
I am. So we haven't. I don't think we've been on since SmackDown was in Knoxville, and there was a few people I knew went. Brett Stanton went. I think he took Big Marshall with him. Matt Waters was supposed to go, but he was under the weather and couldn't. My buddy Chris went and took his nephews, and his brother went, Craig. But there was a lot of people there. Apparently, they had people in the upper deck, which the last couple shows I had been to, it was lower deck at Thompson Bowling only. They had the black curtains down. They didn't have the black curtains down over the whole arena this time. There was several sections of the upper deck, they said, that had a lot of people in them. And that's awesome to see, because I've always said, and I had some inside knowledge that several years ago, back then it was Visit Knoxville now, but whatever they were called back then, they had WWE in town. They wanted to host WrestleMania, and I think it would have been 31 or 32 maybe, but they wanted to host WrestleMania. They had boots on the ground looking at facilities. Neyland Stadium, Thompson Bowling Arena, we got the convention center, we got plenty of hotels. But our friends at the University of Tennessee put a nix on it because they didn't want to move the spring game. So they put a hold on just millions and millions of dollars in revenue. And we may not have gotten it anyways. There's other places that were going to bid on it, but we got everything here. But I'm hoping that, and I feel bad because I didn't go, but I couldn't go. But when they have a Raw or a SmackDown here, that arena needs to be filled up. I want to go to a pay-per-view here. Thompson Bowling Arena pay-per-view, electric.
Yeah. I heard the crowd was good too.
Yeah, they said it was great. The people I talked to that went said it was good.
Because we've had shows here in the past where the crowd was awful, and a lot of fans like online were like, never go to Knoxville again. Because, well, I remember what it was whenever John Curry was a thing. The fans completely took over a match and was chanting Fire Curry.
Yeah.
And like all UT sports related things, and like wasn't even paying attention. That's what I was
to. The first Raw I went to was in Thompson Bowling. I actually went to a Nitro before this when I was in high school, my freshman year. It was actually the week after the finger poke of doom in the Georgia Dome, and Tennessee had won the national title. But the Raw was my junior year in 01. Stone Cold, Triple H, two-man power trip were there. But I remember the entire arena, besides what was behind the Titantron, was full. It was almost sold out. It was crazy. And ever since then, it's just steadily gone down. But that was obviously peak WWE at that time. But, I mean, they go to arenas that are same size as Thompson Bowling, and they're always full. And I realize the market's different sizes, but gotta be nice to get a pay-per-view here. They've had them at freaking Rupp Arena before. It's time to get one here. So
great.
Let's keep it going. All right. That's all we got for this week's show. Just jam-packed, Harbin. Just what a show. Big Montana.
We had a lot on our chest. Hell, it'd been almost a month.
Yeah. And the fans wanted it. So that's why I texted you all the other day. We got to get some content out. So hopefully we'll be back next week with some good news for Tennessee baseball as they're at Clemson. Good news on the Lady Vols, hopefully. So pay attention to that this week. And remember, you can watch this podcast, every episode on YouTube. So if you want to see our faces, we're showing you our faces. Go watch us there. And by the looks of our ratings, not many have been watching or listening. So we got to pick it up. It is the doldrums of summer, though. Football is what drives this podcast, and we're not in football yet, Harb. So we'll get there. But
we'll get there. We're gonna have a great fall.
For those that do listen, though, we very much appreciate it. We're planning some stuff for tailgating for football this fall, so it should be fun. We'll have more of that, more info on that as we get along. But remember, you can find us anywhere you get a podcast. We're also on YouTube. So for Harb, this has been Negative Nease. I need to point that way. Harb's over there. I'm right here. Big Montana, hopefully we'll be back next time. Day Vol, don't know where he's at. I did see Gavin the other day. He's been at my house doing some work, so he is alive and well. So if anybody's wondering, we've taken him off the milk carton for now. I did see him in person. I touched him. It was him.
Pause.
Touched him. I just, patted him on the back. Good to see you. I just wanted to make sure he was there. I'm like Thomas in the Bible. He didn't believe Jesus was there. He had to touch
Good recovery.
He had to touch him to feel it. So there you go. But anyways, I have seen Gavin. He is around. So anyways, appreciate everybody listening, and go Vols. Maybe I'll be in Clemson. Maybe I won't. Either way, we'll see you guys next week on the Section YY8 podcast.